Yesterday, we told you about the lack of diversity here at City Hall, with only 10% of councillors identifying as visible minorities. It's a disproportionately low number, considering half of Toronto's population is made up of minority groups. Tonight, we spoke to a few of the councillors who overcame the odds and got a seat at City Hall.
Being a racialized young person who came to this country as a refugee youth at the age of 16, I don't have the existing networks in politics. I don't have family members who have succeeded in politics. So it's been a barrier. It's been a barrier also in terms of overcoming people's perception of a racialized young person, being able to represent all communities. But it's been a rewarding journey because a lot of people have helped.
As a racialized woman, as someone who is out openly gay, it has sometimes been a very empty journey because it's lonely, because I am the only one at City Council. But I also take a lot of strength in that, knowing that I have to represent a bigger, broader constituency.
Why do you think so many communities, especially minority communities, may have more challenges in getting to City Council or getting to office?
Well, racialized communities face struggles and challenges because there's systemic racism of how people are perceived, how people are promoted, how people are supported. In addition to that, we also have, elections are also about how much money you can spend on your campaign, who is able to endorse you.
City Council is trying to change that. I think Council in total does recognize, if we're very honest, is that we do not reflect the wide and beautiful diversity of the city.
We broke down the numbers for you yesterday using Stats Canada's definition of visible minority to see how diverse city councillors are around the country. In Toronto, where a little over 51% of the population belongs to a visible minority group, 90% of councillors are white. In Vancouver, 54% identify as a visible minority and 80% of council is white. Montreal, 31% visible minority, council is 94% white. And provincially, 28% of people in Ontario identify as a visible minority and 82% of MPPs are white. Keegan Henry Matthew ran for City Council in Ward 7. He lost against Councillor Giorgio Mamaliti. The now 30-year-old says he is planning to run in the upcoming municipal election later this year. And like Councillor Sean and Wong Tem, he says there are barriers that are faced by minorities who have aspirations for political office.
Running for council was probably one of the most grueling things I've ever done in my entire life. It was grueling financially. At times, the campaign itself would take food off of my own table. There are no campaign schools. This is not something that's part of our education system. So when you put your name down on the ballot, you really don't know what to expect. So it's being able to connect those experiences, those skill sets, the people who've been involved in the process, to the political leaders in our communities that have been doing the work, that have these skill sets to be able to lead on council.
What would you say to someone who says these are challenges everyone faces?
A lot of it is, when we talk about the system as a whole, the system keeps everybody out unless you have a special interest or special connection to the process. It could be through your family name, as we see with the Fords, and with other, political families that have sort of just almost like taken over that process. So yeah, there are barriers that are there for everybody, but especially for marginalized community people of color, and immigrants who come to this city.
It's very important to be looking at investing to make sure the diversity is across the board at all levels, not just at the entry level. And that needs measuring, that needs data, collecting and comparing, making benchmarks and seeing progress. And we're not doing that as much. We don't want to talk about collecting data, race-based data, to show either progress being made or where the difficulties are.
And Councillor Wong Tam says there are programs in place to help address these gaps, including mentorship programs that connect young people in the community with politicians here at City Hall. And ahead on City News, underrepresentation doesn't stop at Toronto's border. We speak with a longtime cabinet minister about breaking through in the provincial elections. We've been highlighting the lack of diversity on Toronto City Council, but underrepresentation doesn't stop at Toronto's borders. While 28% of Ontario's population is part of a visible minority group, minorities make up only 18% of politicians at Queen's Park. One of those MPPs is Mitzi Hunter. We spoke to her about the lack of diversity in Canadian politics.
You know, I'm in politics to make a difference in the lives of people, young people, making sure they get the best education possible. You know, Canada and Ontario has given that to me. My family and I, we moved here from Jamaica, and they've always said that we're in this country to have a better life, and the door to that better life is through education. It starts with fielding diverse candidates, and that's really important, and I know that that's something that we're working hard to do. When you look at over 50% of our candidates so far are women. That adds to the diversity and the shared voice. 40% of our cabinet are women. And so that's the first place to start, is people putting their names forward and really running for elected office. Then what's really important is that people have to get out and vote. I had really terrific mentors along the way, people like Alvin Curling and Jean Augustine. They always made a space. They always invited me to the table, and they invite many young people to the table, even until this day. So that's how I got my start, and you know, we have to make room for diverse voices. Whenever I always say, look around the room and find out who's missing and invite them into the conversation, because their voice really matters.
And Mitzi Hunter's advice for any young people looking to get a foot in the door, either at City Hall or Queen's Park, she says volunteer and get involved in causes